Hi and welcome back to my channel. In this video I'll be stripping the interior of my E30 Touring by removing all the sound deadening, cleaning up some of the welds, and primering the areas that are bare metal or have been worked on. So the first task here was just remove all the plastic brackets and everything that goes on, inside the interior. You've got to be pretty careful with these because they're quite brittle. Just using basic tools really to remove them all. There was a few gaskets and such, but once they're off we could then move on. So with the interior stripped as far as possible, it's now to the sound deadening. And now there's quite a few different methods available for this. Online you can read for both. People fight you to do it either cold or hot. For me, using a heat gun and a chisel worked absolutely fine. Remove them kind of, depending on the temperature, remove them in chunks. If you went too hot, it kind of gummed up a bit. So you kind of had to find that happy medium. It did leave a bit of residue, but I'll show you how I remove that in a minute. So just like the methods for removing the sound deadening, there's also a lot about removing the adhesive. For me, I just use simply some white spirit, Scotch pad, and then a little chisel just to catch the last little bits. Simply wiped off, took honestly minutes. It was a great little method. So now with the seam sealer removed from the affected areas, I was able to work on all the weld repairs that I did from doing the underside. So most of these weren't protected correctly during this process. It's something I kind of forgot to do. So mainly just going over, making sure everything's still nice and clean. I didn't go too crazy with the welds because of the underside is all painted and I don't want to get it too hot. But I wasn't smoothing it completely because it doesn't really matter underneath here. But other than that, nice easy job. Once they're done, we can move on. So once that was all cleaned up and etched, I was able to apply the 2K epoxy primer to all the bare metal in any areas I've worked on. Using a brush, it's really able to get into all the little gaps, which is much better than using a spray gun. Now with the bare metal on the interior all primered, I was able to move on. So this boot surround here is pretty horrendous condition. Unfortunately, it's not something you can buy new or even an aftermarket piece. So unfortunately, I had to cut it all out separately. This took about 11 pieces in total due to the complex shapes. But the final result is pretty good, and at the end of the day, it will all be covered. Now moving on to the pedal box, this is something that I may have missed when I was doing repairs to the firewall. Unfortunately, I lost the piece that I had, which had the rest of the holes on. So when I replaced that section there was no holes to use to re-drill. So all I'm doing here is just cleaning it up and using the top 2 holes that luckily I left in place from the dash to kind of get the holes where I need them. But then also I decided to, instead of using the captivated nuts that come through into the engine bay through the firewall, I was able to plug weld some small studs on in that area. And I was quite happy with that result. Also, because I do not have a battery tray anymore and it's quite modified, I was then able to use one of the brackets that used to go on the back, the battery tray for the pedal box. So the first job was to make a little bracket up just to mount to the new piece. And here we have everything primered up, ready to go. As you can see on the firewall where I indented it in the last episode, I was able to get my friend round who was able to clean that up for me. Also primed the rear part of it. So now I can move on to the next job, which is the seam sealing and the interior spray. Yeah, thank you for watching.